Hey everyone, this is Christy Furry from Consult JC, and today I'll be doing a short demonstration of how we have applied Zoho to a specific business scenario. And in this case, I'm going to be touching on a services business that have very defined products that need to be synced over to a Zoho finance project. And here I'll unpack a couple of really key ideas that you should be keeping top of mind when architecting your Zoho solution, or at least thinking about how best to use your Zoho to manage your professional services business. So this is an industry-specific demo, but it could be applied to multiple different use cases. So I'll keep it generic enough that you could apply it if you fall into the professional services bucket. That's, the accounting firms, the legal firms. If you're providing some kind of consulting services, this kind of configuration could be very useful to keep in mind when you're thinking about your Zoho migration. And it's just an opportunity for you to familiarize yourself with some of the principles we apply here at Consult JC when using your Zoho instance. So for today, I'm going to be touching on a couple of applications that we have configured for the professional services industry, starting with Zoho CRM and then moving over to Zoho Books, and that's Zoho Books Projects specifically. And we'll be touching on a few modules within the CRM that really power a good practice when it comes to new business and onboarding it efficiently into your Zoho ecosystem. We really want to look at some key things that you want to solve in this kind of configuration, ensuring that new business gets the kind of attention that it needs from the time that you capture the business information on a form or on a details page, really ingesting that into a reliable platform for your customer information, and then moving it through some kind of pipeline to ensure that you really take it through its paces, whether it be contracting or getting certain inputs when it comes to building out the layers of information you have. And here, I think we'll be touching on Zoho Forms and CRM. Maybe just another app to make mention of is Zoho Sign. So without further ado, let me jump into the demo for today, and hopefully it can inspire you on what the possibilities are for your future onboarding process. And let me get stuck in. So by default, the products module is really the backbone of our architecture for your professional services industry. And I think that for some services business, you may kind of leave this productization to a little bit of a later problem. What I will say to you is that having a custom services offering for every single client ends up producing a lot of extra time for your sales and onboarding team that's really not necessary. I think having a dedicated sort of products master and moving towards that is a good principle for even the services industry, because it's going to just help you streamline your efforts and clarify what your offering is and what the price points should be for a typical service that you render. So here we've got your products module, and here we've got different kinds of products, just to give you an example of different types of professional services. So we've got a recruitment agency here that's placing a couple of sales agents or lead gen agents. And then here we've got for your financial services, you got your hourly bookkeeping and your monthly bookkeeping. So how I see this part of the implementation really playing a central role is, depending on the different types of products or services you have, you can also have additional onboarding layers that are connected to it. For example, if it's an hourly bookkeeping engagement, you could automate, the description of these services. You could have inclusions or exclusions that are typically things you want to have in your contract. So you end up building your services library and fleshing that out in a centralized place. So if there are any changes to the terms or changes to the pricing, you update it in one place and it has a downstream impact on all of your other tools. Okay, so really you can get pretty detailed about this. We've just gone and taken away the inventory component. So out the box, CRM does come with a inventory tracker, which is a very rudimentary inventory tool to see how many units of a particular product you have. You don't need to keep that in here. I've removed it since this is the services master and it's not carrying any inventory. We've also got a detailed breakdown of the cost of sales. And please, I do not mean to replace the accounting function with this. However, I think it's nice to know that you can break down the cost of a particular service in a little bit more detail to track whether you are making a good gross profit, especially if your sales team are fiddling with the selling price. You want to make sure that the gross profit is maintained. So for this particular example, let me just take you to one that's populated. We've got here, for example, a little bit more of a detailed breakdown of all of the elements that constitute of this particular service. And at the end of the day, we want to see, what is the price per month and how much are we going to be profiting if we sell that out at the price point that we're looking at. So the cost price per month is calculated by the subform below. And here you've got your profit or loss for the particular seat that you're selling. So again, highly customizable how you build out your products or your services master. I'm not trying to replace your typical financial reporting here, but it does help to know that you have a services library in which you can refer to when you're building out a particular deal or opportunity. Okay, so starting with a database, making sure that it's comprehensive and setting some pricing in place so that you're not having to make it up every time you meet with a new client. You've got a clear sort of list of things that you offer and what the pricing is for each one of those. Okay, so now we've got our products master on the back end. We are going to jump over to the front end and what that looks like from a sales and new business perspective. We've got your deals pipeline, and here, just for frame of reference, I haven't done a heck of a lot of customization to these modules. You can absolutely change the name of the modules, so don't get stuck on that. Just like I mentioned, the products module can be renamed to the services module, but I just wanted to keep it really out the box so you know which module to use for this functionality. I do not recommend creating a new custom module for all these different features. Where at all possible, I'd encourage anyone architecting a solution to stick closely to the system-defined modules. They have a lot of functionality behind them, and you don't want to lose out on that in the long run because it means custom development and maintaining the syncs that are out the box using custom code. Okay, in this case, the products module is fully synced with the Zoho Books items module, and that may be necessary in your environment or not, but I'd prefer to, leverage the default integrations that you get out the box and not cut yourself out from those benefits out the gate. Okay, so here we've got the items master. I'm going to turn on the sync to show you how all of my items move over here automatically. For now, I just want you to know products master syncs with the items master inside of Zoho Books out of the box. So where possible, you should be using that module. All right, then we go to the deals module, which again, we have not changed the deal stages. These are the out the box stages. And I've added a couple here just for your reference on how you can extend a typical deal lifecycle to additional stages that may be applicable. And we've got your typical steps that really allow your sales process the necessary kind of rigor to get a new business inquiry through all of the various, steps. Again, what you see here can be fully conformed to your process, but all I want to drive home here is that your sales efforts should have a process. You should have a step A to Z to get a new inquiry from the first step of them talking to you to ultimately the closed one step. All right. So closed one inside of CRM is green and it's got 100% probability, which simply just means that whatever was added to the deal is 100% recognized as revenue at the date that you stamp it in. Okay. So we've got a couple of different options here in your deals module, which I want to just elevate to your attention. The first one is this process can be as rigorous or as loose as you like it. So here we've got just a typical drag and drop functionality where you can take a particular opportunity or deal and move it through its paces. Of course, if you had very specific checkpoints that you needed at every step, before you moved it to closed one, you could add this into a blueprint. Okay. Now, I haven't shown you the blueprint. That's a whole other can of worms. I'm just showing you the high level architecture that I'd recommend for a typical professional services environment. And you can make this as rigorous or as loose as you'd like it. There are different features that you can use in Zoho CRM to close down your process to specifics. But in this particular case, I just want to say that there's a good degree of flexibility, and I'm more concerned with having a process behind your new client acquisition than showing any particular feature in specific. Okay, so if you don't have a process behind your sales, I would strongly recommend that you make use of your CRM deals module to ensure that any new business goes through its paces so that you cover the necessary points, and most importantly, you obtain the right details of the scope. Okay. Here we've added a breakdown of the deal, which again is related to your products module. Now, this can be sliced and diced in various different ways, but what the heart of what I want to say to you here is you want to make sure that all of the services or products that you offer are in your products module. So this is a lookup to your products or services database. You want to make sure that this is a good reflection of your active business offerings. And that way, when you're inputting the product, it automatically reflects what the hourly price is. Okay. This particular example, they want a good degree of flexibility. They want to be able to choose how many hours they want, what the monthly cost component would be. They wanted some discounts. That's all going to come down into a total deal price. I think it's just good to note that what you're adding in your subform level is going to actually be the basis for any contract that you have with your client. So you've got one place where you're needing to essentially front load the scope of what this deal includes or excludes. And once you have that in place, you're able to actually generate a pretty sexy looking contract that you can send using Zoho Sign or just a mail merge document. And this is just a way for you to automate, once again, how much information you have in the deal. It can pull through to a merge template. So here you can refer to the breakdown of the deal, and you could just essentially insert a whole lot of information in there to ensure that whatever product was selected is there, whatever the price was or the quantity, let's say. I'm just going to update the template here, and let's just say here service name, quantity, and hourly price. If I update this template, it's so great. You only need to do it once, and in future it will simply just keep that amendment in place. So it's busy creating that merge document, pulling through the information from Zoho CRM in order to automatically populate this contract. It's just stopping me from doing that. Let me try it again. Here's our contract. It's completely powered by the CRM. So you've got your quantity, your hourly prices. This can be completely formatted to your company's letterhead. Anything else pretty that you want to add, logos or branding, it can really take the form that you want to. And ultimately, you can edit this before sending it off to the client for signing, which can be done via Zoho Sign. So there we go. We've added a breakdown of the deal inside of the deals module, which powers your contract being created and sent. Once it's been sent, you can update it manually to proposal price quote. Maybe you get another meeting with negotiation, and eventually you can mark it as closed one. And here I've kept everything out the box, so no automations. But if you did want to make sure that the final deal value that you calculated in your detailed breakdown of the scope gets populated on the amount of the deal, you absolutely can do that. But there we go. So we have locked in the deal value. We've also calculated a commission based off of a very basic formula. So if you had, salespeople receiving commissions on deals that they close, you can set up a simple formula like 10% of the deal value goes to the deal owner, which in this case is just our dev account. But that could be assigned to any user that has a license on your Zoho CRM. Okay. So here we go. We've got a couple of different hourly price points. Let's say they closed this and they didn't want to do a monthly. They wanted an hourly engagement for the bookkeeping and a lead gen person. Let's just quickly delete this one. Yes, delete. Oh, it's not letting me do that. Let me just go into the edit form. And there we go. So here we go. We've got our services that we've engaged the client with. They have accepted those terms and signed the Zoho Sign contract. And now we want to create the billing environment for our team members to start booking time against this client. Now, here is a important thing to note when it comes to external contractors jumping on the system. If you are a professional services firm that have contractors in your environment, I think it's important to note that Zoho One can become a very pricey investment, especially if you have 200 contractors or 2,000 contractors, because you're going to have to pay for every seat, which is essentially going to be a software cost per person. And that might be a little bit extensive for your budget. So I would recommend keeping your Zoho ecosystem unbundled. So you would buy your standalone CRM with a standalone Zoho Books. And that way you do not need to pay for that user to have access to all the applications that are typically included in a bundle. Just a little note to you, if you are employing a lot of external reps or people that are doing the professional services on behalf of the business, you can absolutely give them a domain name or, an email address with your domain name, etc. It's not a problem, but I would suggest keeping your apps in standalone format. That means that when it's time to come to capturing their timesheets, they can have access to Zoho Books as a timesheet user, and it's a lot more affordable than giving them a full user license to something like Zoho One. So something else to just keep in mind for all of our professional services businesses, we know that you're often employing people that are, not full-time employees. So this is just a good hack. Okay, so we've moved out of the CRM environment. Typically, we, at the time of closed one, you are looking at a onboarding process. And I haven't really gone into too much detail here. You could keep the onboarding process inside of your deals module and have a couple of extra stages in your deal to just track where we are at with our onboarding process. You can get nice and fancy and have a full-on team layout, which will be a separate module that triggers a whole bunch of extra records for different departments. Maybe you've got a legal team or a technical team that would jump on for a typical onboarding process. Again, you can get as complex or as simple as you need to. But typically what I'd like to say is closed one gives you the opportunity to trigger a lot of onboarding automation. And that can be different things for different environments. But at minimum, I would say it should trigger the creation of something we call a Zoho Books project, which is essentially the billing environment that you want to establish with the terms of the deal. Okay. And that just kind of automates the need for you to manually assign the original deal terms to a project environment or go and recreate an entire project environment on a separate app. By using a custom automation, you can actually trigger something called a Zoho Books project. Again, super useful because you can add your contractors on here separately so they could see the projects that they've been assigned to and add time according to all of the clients that they are working on behalf of the business. So I'm just doing this manually to show you the principle, but this would ideally be part of a custom script or custom automation. Guys, I'm being super intentional about not building this in the back end and you just assume this is out the box. This isn't out the box, but it's just a useful hack we've built for many professional services industries, which just works really, really well. So I'm going to show it to you manually, but we would suggest building a deluge script on the closed one, which will automatically trigger the provisioning of this project on Zoho Books. Typically, what we have is something like let's say this is the name of the company, is Lane Powers, and we can call that the name of the project. And here, if you've got the integration turned on, the customer that is in your CRM should automatically sync to Zoho Books. I haven't turned on the integration here, again, very intentionally, so that you can see that there is no data on here, but ultimately with the default sync, you can essentially sync any information that gets onboarded on CRM into your demo environment, or sorry, your Zoho Books environment. So I'm just going to do this very briefly to show you the information. And now we have a couple of extra billing methods. So what I want to do is we've got based on task hours as the billing method, and we want to basically set a couple of tasks here, and it's going to be locked in exactly as per our original deal. Okay, it wasn't that one. Let's just get it open again. So here's a deal as an example. So we've got our hourly price. And what we're going to do in the custom function is essentially just lock in whatever the hourly price was into your project. So here we've got your agent flat rate, and we said that the hourly price was quite pricey, $1,000 or 1,000 Rand an hour. And then we've got your inbound customer seat, which is at 10 an hour. So inbound customer seat. And you're welcome to have more information here, right? So any information you had in your deal, say, for example, the amount of hours per week, 20 hours, etc. You can fill in the detail. So what we have here is your billing environment, and you can absolutely from here invite all of the users that would typically be joining the project. This could be automatically provisioned off of your deal as well. We have an instance for a client where all of the provisioning happens inside of CRM. So right out the gate, the customer knows exactly which agents or people they'll be working with in order to fulfill the work. It becomes especially prevalent in professional services when you're selling expertise like legal services that may have a certain technical competency, or if you're recruiting for a certain role for a client. It's useful to then just already have that person mentioned in your sales process, and therefore you should be able to automate the provisioning of the users in the billing environment. Okay, so the same principle would apply. Anything that's captured in CRM would be brought over automatically without you having to manually capture that. There we go. We've got our project environment set up, and the team can slowly but surely start capturing their hours against their particular task that they're assigned to. And as soon as the time starts to be captured, the system is already marking it in a status of unbilled. And that's really for the purpose of automating your invoicing at the end of the day and ensuring that anything that's agreed to, that's part of the original deal sheet, it gets automated when you are doing your billing. So no spreadsheets keeping track of time spent. Here we've got a customer that's actually sending this through an approval process, which I have not enabled. That's another feature, which really is such a wonderful way if you are expecting your clients to approve hours of time that a contractor has worked for on behalf of the company or dispute the time. It will show them absolutely every timesheet that you want them to approve, and then they can go ahead and approve them or log a query or reject them. And it just gives you one interface to manage that whole process between you and your clients rather than having to send emails back and forth. It gives access to a portal, and they can have full visibility over the work that you are doing for them as their supplier. But in the most simple format, users are submitting time, and as they do so, it will be in an unbilled default status. And then eventually you want to be able to go and create that invoice. Just before I do that, just to have a look here, you've got your billable hours and your unbilled hours. And what we want to say here is that if they are seen as billable hours, it means the work that they have done is kind of not approved, but it is of a nature that is billable. All right. So sometimes, some of the tasks may be added here that are non-billable. and you can just deselect that over here. So if you had like a project administrator or a client service team member that's just responsible for the upkeep and the maintenance of the client's happiness or whatever, you can also create a non-billable task, which is maybe for management meetings. You give that time free to your clients. That's a really lovely way of kind of keeping track of the timesheet component so that the team is still capturing their time. But when it comes to invoicing, it won't automatically be included into the invoice. All right, let's go ahead and bill for my time. So if you're wanting to mark it as invoice, it will exclude these timesheet entries from your next billing run. But typically speaking, we should go straight to create invoice. It will automatically select the customer because we have the customer allocated to the project itself. And here you have essentially a project level summary of all of the time spent. So it's not giving you a detailed breakdown. It's just giving you a roll up of that particular project. You can absolutely change your billing settings to show hours by user or hours by task. It really just depends on how you want to send that invoice to the client. And of course, if you had any expenses that you wanted to reimburse, like software fees, maybe they are making use of a Zoho subscription that you are paying for on behalf of the client and you have a recurring expense, you could automatically include that into their invoice without needing to remember, oh, I have to recharge our client for this. Let me just quickly show you how that interface works. So let's say we've got a expense over here and we want to create a recurring expense. And let's say we want to say this is the Zoho subscription, okay, or maybe some other legal subscription that you're paying for on their behalf. And let's say every month it needs to go off and it's already started beginning of this month and it never expires. You can choose your expense account as per your chart of accounts. And let's say it's, I don't know what Zoho goes for monthly. I'm going to say $650. And I've marked that expense as billable. So what that does is when we have our first expense run, let's just quickly check if it has actually run. Let's see if I change it to today, maybe it will run my expense. Okay, there we go. So there's my expense, okay? And you can attach the receipt. So if it wasn't a recurring expense or it was a petrol expense or a lunch or, team member had to go and buy, I don't know, stuff for the client, that can be added here. Then when we're actually doing our invoice, let's go to our project and we should see that at the time of us creating the invoice, there'll be a little pop-up here that says include any unbilled expenses over here. Okay, so we're just going to add that over there. And I didn't give the Zoho the details of that expense, so just saved it as COGS, but you can name it whatever you like. And there it is. It's adding it to your invoice. And that's it. So you can literally just save that invoice, send it out to your client, and it will go ahead and do that. It's busy forcing me to enter in a contact email. So I'm just going to send my email here. So it's asking me to schedule it, but there we go. So there's our invoice. We've got some expenses. We've got the time component. And when we head back to the project itself, you're going to see that we've got some revenue that's being reflected. So I've got your billable hours and we've got no more unbilled hours. So that just means that all of the hours that are logged have actually been invoiced out, and you can actually see which invoice they've been allocated to. On the purchaser's side, I believe that it's also going to have that status of invoiced where the expense was billable. All right, so that's touched on a few applications that we have typically configured for the professional services environment. Just in summary, we've got your products module as the leader or your services master, which really should encompass all of your standardized service offerings and prices. You have your deals module, which creates a process behind capturing the details of a engagement and having the discipline to break it down into a good level of detail so you can automate the contract that you send out to the client. Your master services agreement should be powered by your CRM and not physically typed in every time you have a new deal, We've got a merge template that we've added on a CRM, but if you had Zoho Sign, you could send that out for signature. Once it's signed, moving it to closed one should trigger a number of automations that are pertinent to your business, but the most important one is creating your billing ecosystem inside of Zoho Books projects, which essentially should match whatever you've agreed to in your terms in a very specific breakdown of the project when it comes to the tasks and their hourly rate. We are automating billing through this and ensuring that any expenses are also added to your future invoices. And that is really the crux of a typical new business to onboarding flow that we recommend for your professional services industry. Obviously, there are loads of bells and whistles that can be added on that to really automate and provide an exceptional client experience. Some of them that I touched on would be Zoho Sign. Another one to embellish is also Zoho Expense, which is fully mobile operated, so any of your team members can have it on their phone, can track their mileage, take pictures of the receipt of purchases that they've made on that particular project. And this just aids in you being able to power your billable expenses automatically without having to expect someone to send a recon of their spend. Awesome. So that's me from Consult JC giving you a industry specific demo on the Zoho ecosystem. Just a quick reminder that if you are looking to power this environment for a large degree of external contractors or people that are not full-time employees, I would recommend you having a standalone instance of Zoho to save the cost of additional software fees. That's it from me today, folks, and I hope you enjoyed this demo. If you liked it, please share it, join our channel, do all the things, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers.